Lady Sa landed neatly on the narrow walkway between the castle battlements and rolled up her magic carpet. After nearly 900 years in her possession, it responded to the merest flick of her wrist. The wind shunted her against the wall of the stone bridge joining two turrets, and she paused to regain her balance. It was a long fall to the courtyard below, and she did not wish to test the reflexes of her carpet, no matter how much she trusted it. The wind pasted her silk shell-white trousers to her legs, hobbling her and making the short distance along the walkway to the turret a struggle. Her bones ached, despite her supposed agelessness. She braced herself and pulled at the door. It took all her strength to avoid being whipped off the battlement as the wind swirled around the tower and toyed with her. She timed her movements and swung with the door, catapulting inside as it began to blow shut. Druid Reese looked up from his workbench. "Lady Sa," he said, bolting upright and collapsing his long body into an awkward bow. "None of that, Reese," Sa replied as she wiped hair out of her face and patted the pouch in her camise tunic to reassure herself that the Emperor's orb was safe. Though out of necessity she'd learnt to speak passable universal Hellenic, she could usually make herself understood. But she often carried the orb for its magical translation properties that turned anyone's speech into her native Persian and hers into perfect Hellenic. Today, however, the orb had a much more important purpose. If she was correct in anticipating the arrival of the first wand holder in over a century. "What of the groundquake?" she asked Reese. "Did you get recordings from Rasputin?" "Indeed." Reese flourished a sheet with a zigzag pattern scrawled upon it. Sa drew out a similar record from her pouch. "The machine in Galen's chambers worked too," she said. Reese accepted the delicate paper eagerly and swept a space on his workbench to make further calculations. Sa found herself distracted by the assortment of equipment surrounding him, the workbench more of a clutter than she approved of. How the man kept track of any of his experiments she would never understand. For a moment, she allowed herself to think of Druid Galen and the elegant precision with which he'd worked, and then she firmly shut her mind to yet another who was lost to her. Time weighed heavily on her, but it was also kind enough to erase the pain of loss eventually. Galen's disappearance was too recent, though, at least for her. She turned her attention to Reese's two nearly identical drawings, 3 overlapping circles on maps of upper ground. To her disappointment, they converged on a section of the ocean. She sighed. "No, milady," Reese said. "It is good. Look closely." Sa blinked to focus on a pinprick of land. "What is it?" "Mist Island," Reese said. Sa locked eyes with the young druid. Her heart thudded in her chest. "Do not breathe a word of this to anyone," she said. "What do I tell Lord Borealis?" Reese asked. "He brought the seismograph from his world. He will want to know if we were able to use it." Sa inclined her head. "Borealis may be trusted to a point. Be vague with your discourse. All 3 kingdoms will seek the source. I must find it first." Mist Island was easily an overnight flight on the carpet, but the 2 groundquakes had occurred in quick succession, suggesting an eager wand holder, perhaps one who would finally use the 3rd crucial wish. Sa directed the carpet on a flight path as close to the ground as possible, knowing that the sudden arrival of a visitor could send them into freefall. It was safer too, though her ears were long attuned to the dangers of the sky. She studied the trees as she flew between them, expecting a tremor at any moment. Then she had an idea. She pulled out the orb, running a finger over the carved wooden carvings that formed the shape of the hollow sphere that had long ago sat atop the Emperor's scepter. She unravelled the red carpet thread from around her wrist and wove it through the delicate shafts. She would pull a new thread once she was safely at Mist Island, but at least now there would be no chance of losing the orb. Danger usually came from above, not below. She didn't see the archer until it was too late. An arrow, its tip heavily wadded with cotton, hit her in the chest and knocked her from the carpet. She had the sense to fling the orb away from her before impact with the ground rendered her senseless.